Meet Lottie. At just 5 days old, she found herself completely alone on a stranger's front porch, and the odds were stacked heavily against her. What happened next is a story about a determined little kitten, an exhausted foster mom with a toddler on her hip, and proof that sometimes the tiniest creatures have the biggest will to live. It all started when someone made an unexpected discovery on their front porch. A newborn kitten, alone and vulnerable, no mama cat in sight. They waited for Mama Cat to show up, but eventually it became clear that she wasn't coming back. So this person, with zero experience caring for a newborn kitten, did something remarkable. They walked into their local shelter, picked up a free bottle baby kitten care kit, and got to work. For 3 days, they kept that tiny scrap of fur alive, feeding her kitten formula with the right nipple, keeping her on a heat source, stimulating her to go to the bathroom, and even writing down every feeding, every pee, every poop. For a first-timer dealing with one of the most fragile creatures on the planet, that is nothing short of extraordinary. But they knew their limits. Caring for a newborn kitten around the clock is genuinely hard work, and they reached out to the Baby Kitten Rescue Organization, asking for help. That's when Lottie's foster journey really began. Caroline, Lottie's foster mom, had taken a year and a half away from fostering. The reason was simple: she'd had a baby of her own. And now, with a toddler to look after full-time, day and night, the idea of also caring for a kitten who needed feeding every 2 hours seemed, to put it mildly, ambitious. She turned the request over in her mind. She thought about it all night. And by morning, she had made up her mind. She was going to do it. So Lottie arrived in Caroline's care at 5 days old, and right away it was clear she was a fighter. Thanks to the exceptional care the finder had given her, she was in surprisingly good shape for a kitten her age, which in the world of neonatal rescue is genuinely rare. Most kittens who come in this young are struggling. But Lottie was not most kittens. Of course she wasn't. She's an orange girl. Do you know how rare orange female cats are? Before we continue, let's take a moment to understand just how tiny and fragile a 5-day-old kitten really is. At that age, kittens are blind and deaf. Their eyes are sealed shut and their ear canals are closed. They cannot regulate their own body temperature. They cannot go to the bathroom without help. They need to be fed every 2 hours, including through the night. And without their mother's milk and antibodies, their immune systems are especially vulnerable. Every single thing keeping Lottie alive in those early days was coming from the people around her. As an experienced kitten foster mom, Caroline knew all of this. She wore gloves to protect Lottie from any pathogens her hands might carry, because some viruses can survive on surfaces for months, and a kitten that young simply has no defenses against them. She kept everything scrupulously clean: the incubator, the blankets, the bottles. And every couple of hours, day and night, she picked up a tiny syringe with a little nipple on the end and made sure Lottie was fed. Meanwhile, there was a toddler watching all of this very closely. Caroline's little daughter, Kaya, became one of Lottie's earliest fans. She would watch her mom feed the kitten and then toddle off to practice on her own stuffed cats, pressing tiny pretend bottles to their faces with the utmost seriousness. Caroline let the little girl pet Lottie with one finger while she held her. Kaya was amazingly gentle with the kitten, not something you'd typically expect from a child her age. But then again, this is the child whose mom cares for cats and kittens, so she learns from the best. Around 10 days old, Lottie's umbilical cord fell off, and it was officially time for what Caroline called eyeball watch. By 2 weeks old, those little sealed eyes began to crack open. Halfway at first, just enough for Lottie to start making sense of the world she'd landed in. By the end of that week, they were fully open, and Lottie had almost tripled her weight since arriving. At 3 weeks old, Lottie got a promotion. She graduated from the incubator into a small playpen, her first proper apartment, so to speak. Her baby teeth, the tiny incisors, had started to come through, which also meant her latch on the bottle got a little lazy. Kittens at this age sometimes lose their strong sucking reflex as the teeth emerge, so Caroline switched back to a syringe with a nipple, gently helping the milk along while Lottie did her part. She also started sneaking a tiny amount of wet kitten food into the formula, just a fraction of a teaspoon, to begin getting Lottie's digestive system ready for the real food that was coming. And through all of this, one thing stayed constant: Lottie purred. From the very first days, the moment anyone picked her up or stroked her little head after a feeding, she would start to rumble. This kitten, who had been found alone and helpless, seemed to understand on some instinctive level that she was safe, and she expressed that in the only language she had. Little by little, week by week, Lottie grew. She started exploring her playpen. She started figuring out the litter box. She started following Caroline around the house like a small, very persistent shadow, deeply invested in whatever Caroline happened to be doing at any given moment. At around 8 weeks old, Caroline looked at this confident little cat trotting after her through the house and felt something a lot like pride. She had watched Lottie come from a 5-day-old scrap of fur who needed help doing everything into a kitten full of personality and life and love. And now it was time for the next chapter. By early May, Lottie was fully vaccinated, microchipped, dewormed, flea-treated, spayed, and ready for her forever home. Somewhere out there, a very lucky family is about to get the world's most devoted, purring, ankle-following, snuggle-demanding little cat. As for Caroline, she'll be the first to tell you that letting go never gets easier, but that's not the point. Every kitten that gets adopted makes room for the next one. And somewhere, right now, there's probably another tiny creature in need of exactly the kind of care that saved Lottie's life. And that's the thing about Lottie's story. It is about one particular kitten, yes. But it's also about the finder who didn't walk away, the devoted foster mom, and the rescue work that makes it all possible.